Welcome, everybody, to Finding the You and Mum podcast. I'm Christine Bagley Jones, and today I'm very excited about my new guest. Her name is Jade Payne, and she is an inspiring mother of four. She's part of the painful cohort, including her husband Josh, and they have this fascinating life where she opted quite radically. I don't know if it's out of the blue or not, we'll soon find out, to pack up and get on the road with her four children, two dogs, and I think even a cat, and go on a bit of a road trip. From a background in marketing, Jade now enjoys a career working remotely and still offering her services in the industry while also having that very eclectic lifestyle of parenting a hectic bunch of kids. So, welcome, Jade.
Thank you so much for having me on.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm really excited to get to chat with you today and learn a little bit more about, firstly, what inspired you to travel, but also just a little bit more about your take on motherhood since, you're young and you've embraced this very, I guess, spontaneous way of living because most people think when you've got four kids, you want the security of a roof over your head and that predictability of knowing that each day you can get a routine. And I just can't even imagine how that would be possible when you're driving for hours a day and then you're homeschooling the kids. So I look forward to hearing about it. Has it been a good experience?
It was the best experience. Like the words can't even equivalent how life-changing it was and how it was everything that we had hoped plus tenfold for
How long
all.
did you end up going for?
So we were gone for 7 months on the road. Originally, we had planned 2 years, and then we kind of had roles reverse where I was working remotely part-time and we were living off-grid and on South Australia, Palubi Beach, and my backdrop was literally $1 million views, our caravan and truck on the beach with our four kids, two dogs, and a cat. And my husband was the stay-at-home dad. So we kind of got to about 7 months and he was like, right, I've had enough. I need I need normality. I also need to go back to work. And then we made it to Geraldton, which is literally on the opposite side of the country from where we were originally from, the Gold Coast. Before we left, we had a list. Well, I had a list because everyone told me we were nuts. I had family that didn't want to speak to us because we were choosing to go. It was also a hard thing. I think the reason why we traveled was my dad passed away from leukemia, and it kind of just put a real aspect on my life where I was like, my life is so short. My dad always said he wanted to do it when I was about 15, and I was like, no, I'm 15, I'm a teenager, don't you do this. And literally from 18, I said, you should have done it. You should have just tied me to the
Mhm.
truck or the bus or whatever we were going to go in and just go. And once my dad passed, my house didn't feel the same. My kids weren't really coping. I have three neurodivergent children as well, and two of those children also have hearing loss as well. And I'm juggling a career. Our mortgage was high, and I just was like, why? What is
Yeah.
this for? I feel
Yeah.
like we're chasing our tail to literally keep up with the Joneses on the Gold Coast. And for what? Like, I could die tomorrow. My husband could die tomorrow. Our kids, I blink. We had kids so young. My husband and me were both 19 when we fell pregnant with our eldest.
Wow.
And I was like, we're never going to get this time back. Before we know it, they're going to be out of our house and have their own families and everything. And I said, if we don't go now, it will be the biggest regret of our life. I could just kept imagining myself on my deathbed being like, we should have gone. And everyone said, you're going to spend all of your house money because we sold everything. Sold everything up, bought an Isuzu truck, and bought a 20-foot caravan and packed our whole lives up into a van with four kids, two dogs, and a cat. And we went, and it was the best thing. It was so healing for grief because not only was I grieving, but also my four kids were grieving and my husband were grieving. My dad played such a big part in our whole lives, and losing him, we needed to go and just be a family and try and find our new normality. It was life-changing.
Oh, and congratulations, because that's brave. I think you're not the only person that's fantasized about just selling up everything and just getting off that treadmill and embracing what really matters, which is family. But very few of us really have the guts to do it because we're too fearful of what the next chapter will bring if we go and throw all of that caution to the wind. But
Oh, we had the amount of times that I got told that we were going to spend all our house money, we were going to be and back up in my mum's house, renting off her, or we were going to be living with my mum and our four kids and two dogs and a cat, and we were ruining our kids' childhood. The things that we had heard, the 6 months, we decided in July we had a few renovations to do on our house and finish off. So our house went live, I think November, but it was literally those few months of the new life, what you wanted and envisioned and how you wanted it to work, to what your old life and a lot of your friends, we had a couple of really close friends who were like, go, you're going to do this, will be amazing. This is exactly what you need. Pretty much everyone else was just like, this is so stupid. You guys are nuts. And then when we set off, I had a list. I knew that we wouldn't come back to the Gold Coast. I said, there's no way. I want a house near the beach, but I want a smaller mortgage than I had before. And I want a community country feel. I want our kids to be brought up in a smaller setting where it's safe for them to play out on the street. They know their neighbors and all of that kind of community. And we got to Geraldton and we literally ticked everything off on our list. We all piled out and all our neighbors came over and was like, do you need any help moving in? Let us cook you dinner. It was such a lovely
how
feeling.
heartening, how beautiful,
Yeah.
heartening, and welcoming. And so
Yes.
it sounds like you haven't looked back, like it's been a good choice.
It's funny how in your gut you know there's something more out there and you don't know what that is because it's scary to take that first step and be like, I could very much well do exactly what everyone said, fall on the ground and have to pick myself up and
Mm.
rent a house again. And the fact that we didn't and it all planned out exactly how it should have, it's pretty amazing when you can just take that leap.
Let's start right at the beginning of your motherhood journey. Tell us a little bit about what led you to being a mum in the first place. So obviously you and Josh were little puppies. So was
Yes.
it something you planned or
Oh, no, I will definitely did not plan pregnancy, that is for sure. Josh and I met when we were 18 and we'd been together 6 months. We just moved out of our own, got our own apartment, did all the fun things of buying furniture and stocking our house up and going for the first food shopping. And then I didn't know that when you had antibiotics, the pill cancels out. And
ah,
we had a lovely surprise of finding out that we were pregnant,
oh my goodness.
which was really, really scary, but I knew, and my husband knew well, we weren't married at that time, but we knew straight away that we weren't going to get rid of that. I told my dad on the phone, and he pretty much said, tomorrow I'll pick you up and you're going to get an abortion. I was like, no. And
Mm.
he's like, yes. And I'm like, no, 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 I'm 19. I live out of home. I have a car. I have a job. We are doing this.
He probably thought he was coming from a very nurturing, worldly place and he knows better than you. But luckily, you had that understanding about yourself and that inner confidence and knowing that was allowing you to stand up to him and say, no, actually, this is the beginning of me completely honoring my own beliefs and
It was
desires.
hard. Like my dad, we didn't speak for nearly 6 months. I barely saw my mum. At the time, Josh was working for his family, so a lot of the appointments I went alone
Mm,
for, which was even really daunting because you get judged when
mm,
you're 19. We had private health, so I was going into private hospitals and it was very judgy from nurses, from doctors.
mm,
Even after I had my third, I used to get all the time to the same dad. Yes,
mm.
to the same dad. Because at that time I was 24 and I had a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and a newborn. To them, they're like,
Clearly, you're a bit on the
clearly,
loose side of the fence, aren't you,
yeah,
lady? Yeah.
literally. So,
Yeah, and that just is, it makes me sad to even hear that society in this day and age is so quick to judge and make assumptions rather than just being generous and supportive. And I'm hoping that as women, as a cohort, we can try to break down a lot of that attitude around let's be quick to judge rather than just assume good things or
there you
assume
go.
nothing. I've got 5 kids, and even though I had mine older, I still got asked those questions often by people because how do two people stay together through 5 kids?
Who willingly puts themselves in anything over two?
That's exactly right. So, what mindset or mantra have you used throughout the years that's helped to keep you grounded?
I feel like the best one that probably resonates for me now, I feel like as you go through the different stages of motherhood, it changes.
Mm,
But being a mum is a part of me, it's not all of me. as your children start to get older, obviously when they're really young, and my children, I had a 7-year-old, 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and a newborn. Life was mental. There is no space for you. When you have multiple children with multiple needs and everything like that, and you throw a job in there as well, I was also the breadwinner, which made things very hard juggling wise. There was no room for me, and I'll openly say that. And I feel like any mum in that right age where you've got children under the age of 5, you
Yeah.
don't, because every aspect is around you. You have to bath, food, everything from start to finish.
Mm.
And now that my children are starting to get older, that's when I've started to realize there is space for me and for
Yes.
my feelings and for what I want out of life as well. Like
Mm.
it doesn't just identify me.
That mantra that you just mentioned sounds like it's powerful because it sort of invites patience. It's like, right now, I'm doing all of this because I have young ones that are completely dependent and reliant on me, but I know that this isn't going to be forever.
Yeah.
So I just have to get through these little periods of time, and then there'll be an opening and a clearing where I can then circle back to my own needs. And so, what were some of the passions or desires that you quietly held on to, knowing that you weren't going to be able to experience them anytime soon, but you knew that at some point, maybe even you still haven't had the chance yet to actualize them?
So I think the biggest one was when I was in high school, I wanted to be a fashion designer.
Mm.
And I even went to like night school at a fashion school and did sewing course and I did like a design course as well. And I was pretty much like, okay, as soon as I graduate school, I'm going to go to design and I'm going to become a fashion designer. And then I got diagnosed with bipolar at 17 and I was one term into high school and I just decided I wasn't academic. I had dyslexia and auditory processing as well, plus undiagnosed ADHD. So, and I was pretty much told from year 8 I was only staying in school because I was really good at sport. And then obviously we had kids so young, and we had Lily at 20, then we had Layla at 22, my third at 24, and my fourth at 27. So by the time we were 27, we had 4 children.
Yeah.
I've got a really good career that makes really good money.
Mhm.
I've done it for so long that I'm kind of a little bit burnt out, but our lifestyle requires to make money. You've got to go to work to make money, and most of the time, 2 incomes are required. I put it on hold until after Christmas Eve. I found out that I was diagnosed with kidney cancer.
Mm.
That was very left field. So I pretty much went for a blood test to see if we could have another baby. I thought all of my children just started school, that went to school, and I was at home still working, but I was very, very lonely. Somebody that really went from being a teenager to straight into motherhood. I've never actually had alone time.
Mm.
It's a very different kind of feeling. I've always had a baby on my hip, whatever. So then I was like, one more baby. And then I went for a blood test. My kidney function was all over the place. They were like, we're going to send you for an ultrasound. Went for an ultrasound. And the lady just said, you need to go to emergency. I was like, I've
Wow.
just left my 4 kids at home. I thought I was going to be half an hour. I can't just go to emergency. And she's like, no, you have to. And then I had a CT scan, which confirmed I had a 17 centimeter mass on my left kidney.
Mm.
Then Christmas Eve, I was told, yeah, it's 99% sure it's kidney cancer. You need to have major surgery. Have a great Christmas. We'll see you on the 18th of Jan.
Gosh, just that diagnosis and the reality that there was no, like, even time to digest all the information, you had to act immediately.
It was scary in the fact because I'd lost my dad only 2 years before to a different cancer, but the fact that he had died from cancer, it was really scary, as well as my kids have associated cancer with
Mm.
death. He was 65 when he
Yeah.
passed away, but he had fought for 5.5 years. So it was a really long and
Mm.
grueling battle, which obviously to a child, trying to explain to a child this is kidney cancer, it's very different to leukemia, all of those kind of things. So we didn't really tell them, we didn't tell them until after surgery, where it was confirmed that it was definitely cancer and that I didn't have to do any treatment after,
Mm.
just because I didn't feel like my children could really grasp the difference
Mm.
until we knew everything. You're trying to celebrate Christmas, the best time of the year, and you've got this cloud over your head trying to prepare for major surgery. You don't know if you're doing chemo or radiation at the time. they couldn't tell if it was latched onto my spleen and the bottom of my pancreas. So they were preparing for me to lose those as well. They were like, worst case, it's this, best case, it's just your kidney.
And you did end
But
up losing your
then
entire kidney.
yes, so they had to take, there was no way of saving my kidney. It had taken over
Mm.
17 centimeters, it was huge. There was no aspect. It actually had pressed up and pushed up into my spleen and into my pancreas as well. That's why they weren't too sure if it actually had latched on or not.
Yes, yeah.
There was no really signs. Like I didn't, I had a little bit of back pain here and there, but as a mum, I feel like every mum has back pain as well as doing CrossFit 6 days a week as well. But then that kind of changed our whole perspective, and we then kind of dove into becoming a bit of a non-toxic, crunchy mum kind
Mm.
of lifestyle. I thought I was a really healthy person. I exercised 6 days a week. I didn't drink, didn't smoke. I did all of these things that I would be the least person to get cancer, and I got it.
Mm.
Until I really started to investigate and look at what is actually in our cleaning products, what do we eat,
Mm.
what do we wear? And then that's where I then came with the idea. I obviously live in activewear, go to the gym quite a lot, go to Pilates or CrossFit and all that stuff. That there were everything had nylon or polyester, which is a petroleum-based synthetic, which is pretty much wrapping ourselves in Glad wrap. So then I have built what's called Wild Body. So I'm in the process now of designing an activewear brand that is organic, made from organic cotton, that's got certified as well, so that it's 100% breathable, better for our bodies, better for our hormones. And that's just something from now that I'm birthing that I feel like I can actually put passion and time into. And I don't feel like I'm letting my children down at the same time. I feel like it's the perfect time for this
Well, it
kind of
almost feels
revolution.
like out of something so devastating and so much suffering you would have gone through. I think it's so beautiful that you were able to find a way to learn from it and grow from it, and then perhaps help others by offering fitness gear that's not in any way potentially toxic. And yeah, you're right. You try to do all the right things, and if you're exercising, you're going to wear lycra because, I go to the gym. There's no one wearing a pair of linen pants doing a workout. So I think it's a really worthy cause. And through this very sad experience, and I'm glad to hear that it feels like it's gone well, and we're now in June, and you're looking fabulous.
I feel like the way that I processed it is to prepare myself that I could hear those words again in the next 5 years.
And
So,
how have you gone about that? Like, what have you done to prepare for something like that? Like when you go get your scans, how do you stop yourself from feeling super anxious or concerned?
so I've just done my first scan that was in May and didn't handle that very well. For 2 weeks up, I was so anxious. I was biting everyone's head off, and I think it was my ways body being like, you still haven't processed everything that you've gone through, and I can see that. So I've started therapy again just recently because I'm like, okay, I've got trauma from that, and I need to kind of work through that as well because every 6 months for the next 5 years, I'm going to have to go through this. So twice a year, I'm going to have to wait that dreaded phone call from my urologist to be like, yep, you're all good. Or, oh no, there's something there. And I feel like you kind of got to prepare yourself that you will hear it. And then if you don't hear it, then it's fantastic. But you've kind of got to be like, okay, I could hear it and it's more than likely probably going to be. Let's just prepare for that in the worst way, which then isn't probably the healthiest way of dealing with it either.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure with your therapist, you'll find lots of different strategies to be able to get through that, because when you know that the scan's coming up and that you're going to have to go through all that again, you'd be mostly triggered just because you're reminded of the initial time, and also the fact that all of us could hear this. I'm at a certain age, we're all at a certain age where we have to get more tests and scans, and you're watching the sonographer or the radiographer and their movements because you're so heightened in, the awareness of our mortality. It's just unfortunate that you had to become aware of it in such a shocking way and so young, but it feels like you've handled it extremely gracefully. Tell me, what's a different shocking truth that you've had to learn since being a mum that no one had prepared you for?
I would say that I got told that toddlers are the worst. That once you get through toddler years, it is
Mm.
all good. It's kind of like You're going up on an uphill battle. Oh,
Mm.
no one prepared me for teenagers. My daughter is almost 14. And I feel like by the time I'm 40, she'll be 20, I'm going to be grey. I will be fully grey. There is nothing compared to a teenager. I feel like so far she's taking the cake. I am not mentally prepared for motherhood that we're now transitioning. I feel you get this like little grace period between the ages of 5 and like 9. And then
Mm.
you go into that tween years where it's a little bit sassy and stuff. And then teenagers are just another ball game.
Mm. And it continues.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like there's a sharp learning curve, and at least the eldest is breaking you in for the others, and hopefully it gets a little bit easier as time progresses. So, how do you manage the mental load of balancing work and kids? And like you said, your kids have various additional challenges. How do you manage that balance and still find some time for yourself?
I think the hardest thing and the thing that I've struggled the most with is accepting that I'm not perfect, that I'm not every single day
Mm.
going to be able to be the perfect mum and the perfect employee. There's no way around that.
Mm.
Except when you're able to accept that you're not going to be perfect in every way, that I feel, I guess, guilt or whatever baggage just that alone can come away, can make such a big impact. And it made a big impact. And it's only something recently since we've settled back down that I've been able to do. Back
Mm.
on the Gold Coast, I wasn't able to do that. I was always striving to be the perfect mum. And if I forgot a lunch or I forgot somebody's tuck shop,
Mm.
or my boss, I forgot a meeting, or I had to leave because one of my kids was sick, or trying to juggle all of that,
Mm.
just that baggage alone of trying to put that weight on my shoulders was such a big thing. And now accepting that, okay, I'm human and there is a possibility that I might forget a lunch. But, that's why there's an admin lady and that's why she can call you and say, hey, you forgot a lunch. Oh, no. And don't worry. Can I give him $5 and you come and bring that $5? Sure. That's why we have community.
That's right.
And accepting that, if I died tomorrow, my boss will find somebody else. So, thinking that I have to be the best employee and do the most things and let my family fall down and fall apart is stupid. So I feel like taking that baggage away and something that I'm still currently working on has really impacted that
Amazing.
alone. And then scheduling. You've got to have a board with everybody's plan on it, what's on what, and everything like that.
So let me just ask this perfectionist approach that you did have before, and I'm glad that you've started to dismantle it so that you don't have to try to live up to any kind of unrealistic standard. But where did it originate from? Was it living on the Gold Coast where everybody's trying to do the absolute maximum gorgeous best, or was it because you were young as a mum and wanted to prove yourself, or was it something to do with your upbringing? You've mentioned you've got mental health issues. Was that where you were trying to compete with yourself, or did you feel it was coming externally in comparisons and just wanting to keep up?
I think it's a bit of both. I think as a child, my parents had quite toxic relationship, and I had to be a parent at a very, very young age to the point where I had to call police to get involved, or I had to take my brother and sister to the neighbors because my parents were fighting and it was getting physical. And I feel like I've always tried to, if I'm just perfect, things will just stay in my little box, and I'm
Yeah.
that little child that just wants to
Getting into
make everything
control.
perfect and try and make everything else work so that, if I do this, it won't annoy my dad. If I'm my mum's best friend, then it's okay. And then falling pregnant so early and being judged because obviously at 19, all of my school friends were out partying and everything like that. I was the talk of my grade. Oh, look, she got pregnant. Oh, look, she's going to end up on Centrelink. And when my daughter was born, I read so many books. I was reading sleep studies and doing this, and I made all of her food from scratch. And because I had a lot of guilt, I had to go back to work after 3 weeks after having my daughter, because back then there wasn't a parental leave. It was a 5K bonus that you got, and that was it. And when you're buying baby stuff, and when you're 19, you've
Yeah.
only just moved out of home and you're trying to juggle budgeting your partner at the time, who's my husband now, he was on an apprenticeship wage and like it was I just had to sacrifice. And then it also then stemmed into, I want my children to have what I had. I want a white picket fence. So
Mm.
I want to get a house. So at 21, we built our first home, and it was a lot of sacrifices in the early years so that now we were lucky to be able to reap those rewards, which was traveling Australia. But when we were younger, yeah, it was chasing this perfection of it stemmed through like Lily had to go to bed at this time and she had to be fed at this time and everything had to be controlled.
So I feel like it's a big relief to you not to have to hold on to that perfectionist sort of approach to life. When you think about the concept of the supermum, what comes up for you there? Do you think it's something we should aspire towards? Do you think it even exists?
I feel like if you had asked me before we traveled, I would say super mums, excuse my language, is stupid. It's an unrealized expectation. It puts so much pressure on us and it's all about perfection. But now that I've taken a step back, I feel like all of us are, in a way, a super mum. In my way, I struggle with bipolar, and some days it is really hard if I'm in a down to get up out of bed. And when you're dealing with a down, it can be debilitating. And I've dealt with that since I was 17 years old. But I feel like I'm a super mum because every single day I show up for my kids. Every day I make their lunches, and every day I will be there for my children. But
Mm,
I got up and I made my kids' lunches, and
mm,
I chose to not surrender to my mental illness
mm,
and to put one foot in front of the other.
mm.
And since kind of looking at it more like that, I can appreciate other mums that choose to bake sourdough instead of seeing it as like, she's so lucky, she's a stay-at-home mum and she can do that because of this. I rather now look at it and be like, that's amazing. You're a stay-at-home mum and you really appreciate doing sourdough cooking, or you're a career woman and you really love doing that for that. And I think that also stems from accepting that everyone parents differently and no one is perfect.
And
No
also just a beautiful point about just not judging. Just,
Yeah,
the mum that
yeah,
works full time, if we can just assume that everyone has the right intentions, then we're all super mums and we don't need to pull apart other people's choices just because they're not in alignment with ours.
exactly. And then I feel like not one shoe fits everyone. I chose to work or just because another woman didn't or anything like that. I feel like it's a personable thing. And I feel like we should really focus on lifting each other up and supporting each other. I found my daughter was homeschooled here for a bit in the homeschooling community in Geraldton. And what I noticed in that group of mums is how much they rallied around each other. Like if one had a doctor's appointment, the that person would be like, "Yep, no problem, drop your kids over, just pick them up after." Like it was so interesting to see a group of mums, whether it was four or five of them, just come together and really be their own community within themselves because they didn't have a schooling community as such. And that really also impacted my change on feeling like, you know what, there shouldn't be judgment to
Mm.
anyone. We should accept everyone is parenting differently.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I think that that's the message that we want to convey, that fortunate to be women in Australia in this day and age. And even more so, we're fortunate to be parents. And so if we get to blend those opportunities, we want to create camaraderie. We don't want it to be a disconnecting experience. We want it to be that value add of having more opportunities and to have friendships and to be there for each other. Because it feels nice to be generous and be able to be supportive of someone else and then to feel that reciprocated. That's what bonding looks like up nice and close. So if you had
Definitely.
to give some little advice around how to maintain your identity as a woman while also embracing the challenges of motherhood, what would you suggest, Jade?
I feel like you need to designate an hour to yourself, even when you're in the thick of it. That newborn time where you're trying to juggle breastfeeding and everything like that, like it is hard. But if you can find an hour a day or even half an hour a day, whether that was having a shower by yourself and not worrying that you got to listen out to a baby, or a lot for me was always exercise. I need exercise in my life for my mental health. And I've always relied on a routine so that even if I'm in a down or an up, I rely on my routine. So that is designating an hour in the morning. I'll get up at 5 o'clock in the morning pretty much every day And at the moment, it's Pilates because I can't do CrossFit at the moment because of the fatigue and recovering from surgery and that. But that is an hour that is to me. That is
Yes.
just me, my
Yes.
time, and for my health, my mental health as well. And I choose to make that. So,
Mm.
and that was hard, especially when the kids were younger, was designating that time. And
Yes.
sometimes, I'd go to the gym and maybe walk around in circles, because I was deliriously tired and everything like
That
that.
you're keeping up the routine, which is
Yeah,
wonderful. Were there
yeah.
times during your journey, because it feels like you've had legitimate junctures in your life where you stood out, like you're talking about your mental health journey and then losing your dad when you're young and he was young and then and being a parent so young. Were there periods where you felt particularly lonely?
Oh, yes. When we had our first, I feel like the loneliest that I felt was probably when I had a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and a newborn. And I
Mm.
had 3 children. You couldn't really have a conversation with a 4-year-old. It was lonely. None of my friends had kids at that age. I tried to go to a mum's group, but because I had to work at that time, a lot of the mums group were all not working, and I felt very judged that I was working. I didn't have the flexibility, like they could meet up on a Wednesday at 10 o'clock. Like I could only go to mums group on a Friday because I didn't work a Friday. So I found, yeah, that really hard in that period. I had stopped doing fitness. And then when my third son got to 1, I joined a gym, and I joined like a community gym, and I did a fitness challenge and everything. And I met other mums
Mm.
that were working as well and who were getting up like me. At that time was 4:30 in the morning to make the 5 o'clock session in the morning.
Mm.
And I found my community, which
Mm.
was really hard, where they didn't judge me because I was 24 with 3 children already. And she just introduced me to all of these other mums. And she's still one of my really close friends now. I'm so thankful because she still has no idea how I was like
Incredible.
barely holding on.
How impactful it was to have someone that just opened their heart and their world and their social circle to you. And that offering can often be such a big game changer in terms of that feeling of isolation and not wanting to feel like you're doing it all on your own. So, finally, with regard to self-compassion, how do you conceptualize that? Because you've talked about the different juggles that you've had with your health and how you've managed to carve time to yourself each day, which is cherishable. When you're not being perfect, even though you've got those tendencies to want to be perfect, and you've given yourself permission to be liberated from that toxic ideal, there'd still be days where you probably, like all of us, feel like we're not living up to the expectations we've set for ourselves or the desires or standards or goals that we've set for that period of time. How do you incorporate self-compassion into your life?
I think I'm still learning how to be that. And I feel like this is probably why we carried on, like we did social media while we were traveling Australia, and why we carried on to it, because I felt like the perfection also comes from what I was seeing on social media. And I felt like if I showcased something different and showcased my everyday, one day really good, and I packed everyone's lunches and everyone had vegetables and everyone had fruit and I did amazing. And then the other day I had to clean cat poo up and the dog ran through the house wet, and the kid, I couldn't find a clean shirt for his uniform, so we put a dirty shirt on. I'm still in my PJs at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Uh,
I think all of us can relate to all of that. Even when you
yeah,
said that, I'm like, yep, that still happens quite regularly in my world. It's become
um,
normalized.
and I feel like a way social media has been like a diary to me, if that makes sense. Like I've showcased it in an imperfect way, and it's resonated with other people and given me the confidence to more lean into that. And that's okay because, oh, I've had that day too. And it makes me feel like, okay, I'm not the only one going through this. The pressure of being a perfect mum is in my head. It
Yes,
really is only in my head. And the more that I showcase on social media and the more that it resonates with other people, it's really strengthened my belief that, okay, no, no, that was just a day. Everyone has days and it's okay. And tomorrow is a new day and I'm still a good mum.
that sounds like a perfect mantra, and it's something that if you can really instill and allow, that to penetrate into your psyche, and whenever you're having a wobbly day, you can remind yourself that that's just part of it. Like that is part of it. I'm not trying to be pristine here. I'm just showing up and I'm going to enjoy even the messy days. It liberates a lot of other mums that might be struggling to be kind to themselves and let themselves off the hook a little bit and actually just enjoy it. I mean, like you say, you don't know what's around the corner. You've experienced right up close how fragile our world and our lives can be, and that you don't want to waste time getting hung up on doing everything to a particular standard when good enough, near enough is more than enough, in my opinion.
Definitely. And I feel like it also stems from like Josh, before we left Gold Coast, Josh and I did therapy because our relationship wasn't great. And we did evidence-based therapy, which is based on like attachment styles and things like that. And it was really interesting to see that probably two of my children didn't have a secure attachment because when I was raising them in their primal age of up to 5, I was so fixated on being that perfect mum. I didn't sit down on the floor with them and play and do messy things and things like that because I was like, the washing had to be done. They have to eat 3 vegetables and they have to do this and we
Mm.
have to go to bed at this time. And traveling Australia broke that. It was like, they don't have to have a shower. It's all right. Till my thing of like looking at their dirty little feet was, like every inch of my body wanted to be like, get in that shower now. But they had the best time. They'd been to spend all day playing out with other travel kids. Like I stand by, travel kids are built differently. They will play with all different kids. They'll share toys and they will just share
Mm.
their experiences. They'll talk to older people, retirees about their travel, and they'll talk to 5-year-olds and stuff. And it was, yeah, that was a really cool experience to kind of also give an opportunity to try and rebuild a secure attachment with my daughters
Mm.
because I could see fragments where I was so fixated on being perfect that I really needed to kind of fix that attachment now so that hopefully they don't have childhood trauma.
Let's be tuned. I think that the message there also is really relevant. Just if you can't do what you've done and sell up and get on the road, just to travel short distances, little holidays, but where you encourage your kids to get out and have no expectations around structure and routine, and maybe focus more on the other more important or equally important aspects of life, like connecting with strangers, being generous, being kind, sharing, wanting to understand with curiosity around how other people live. It happens in these public playgrounds where you watch them all come together, forfeit being on the swing so they can swing someone else and then watch it swap over. And I think a lot of parents and mothers can relate to being at the park and watching this beautiful show of interaction. But I can also, remember my childhood being at the beach for weeks on end every Christmas and that happening where you let go of your routine and you were always just a little bit sandy, but you would meet strangers. And because you were young, you're excited to sort of just make a new friend quickly. And those skills get lost if we're just always in the daily grind and not allowing ourselves to have that freedom to feel safe. I mean, obviously you've got to like keep an eye out on everything and we all know about that, but not to the point where it stops people from connecting with, people from other walks of life.
Exactly. And I feel like even having 3 neurodivergent children as well, like they had been in therapy. My eldest had been in therapy since she was 6. You can get to a point with therapy where you can learn so much, but you really need on-the-job training.
Yes.
And for traveling Australia or even traveling like when we've gone to Bali as well, it's really opened our kids' eyes and it's given them the opportunity to actually use the skills that they had learnt in therapy and actually implement them, but in a smaller setting. In school is so hard for a neurodivergent kid.
Mm.
And in a small setting where there's only 2 other kids, when you're on the beach and they're grounded and they're open to that, it's such a really special experience. Just slow down. Slowing down in your life and realizing that before you know it, your kids are going to blink and they're going to be out of here. I think I got told the best thing I've ever got told was the days are long, but the years are short. And I feel
Mm.
like that cannot resonate anymore now that my eldest is almost 14. And I feel like I blinked and
Here we
she's
are.
here we are and she looks nearly as tall as me and everything.
Yes. Thanks so much for being on the program, Jade. I think it was really eye-opening, and I'd love to, at a later date, talk more in detail around, how you maintain your identity while homeschooling your kids and how you maintain your identity as a woman as you're managing and parenting neurodivergent children. And then also, it would be fascinating to understand how you juggle your own mental health issues with bipolar disorder, which is, one of the more heavy conditions.
Bipolar is still very taboo, I will say. It's up there with schizophrenia and things like that. And it's hard. Like, I've chosen to be open about that, and that's for a reason because I've had people message me and be like, I really appreciate you being open about it because I'm so scared to even tell my family that I have it.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, people do try and weaponize it against you,
Well, they just don't know what they're talking about, and
Yeah.
they've made wrong assumptions and judgments. And that's why I think that maybe if you were free, I'd love to have you on another show sometime just to talk about that marriage and how you managed to, because that's, finding Jade in all of that can't be easy at times because there's a lot of layers to your life. And
Yes.
I can still see this very vibrant individual woman that stands separate from all of the beautiful things and not so beautiful things that you're connected to. So I really admire that. And thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. And I really think it's something really special that you're doing. And I really resonated with it. And I think, yeah, keep
Oh,
going because I've listened to all of them and it's so great to get other mums' perspectives on everything and how they've juggled it and how they've done it as well. So it's really lovely what you're doing.
oh, thank you. And, it's really great that you should mention that because I'm trying to interview mums from different ages, different cultures, different ways of parenting, different approaches to it, because within that framework, I want to find the woman. And like I always want to draw out the woman and figure out how they have managed to still keep in touch with themselves and still wake up and have their dreams or be pursuing some sort of aspiration that's quite separate from the role of mum because I feel like talking about taboos, I know when I first became a mum, it just didn't seem like something that was overly celebrated. The idea of still thriving as a woman and allowing yourself to show up quite separate to being a mum. It was like, well, you're a mum now, so go be a mum and enjoy being a mum. And it was like, I don't think it needs to be so.
Yeah, it's more like that saying where you're expected to work as if you don't have kids and you're expected to parent as if you don't have a job. And
Hmm.
it's coming to terms with that expectation. We can do whatever we want, like
Yeah.
that stems from if you choose to have an au pair or if you choose to have a nanny, that's the way of life. And I feel like once you realize that as a mum,
Hmm.
world's your oyster.
Yeah.
Like you get to make the rules, and I feel like it's so much more exciting, but it's also exciting for your kids to see that, especially if you have daughters as well. And also I have two sons as well, for them to be okay with that. They could have they could fall in love with somebody that is really driven and that they don't feel demasculine if
Hmm.
they earn more money or things like that. Like it's a really special thing to also showcase to your kids. It's not just also about you, but it's also how your kids are going to perceive that as
See you.
well.
Yep. I think that's a lovely spot to wrap up on. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye bye.